Stephanie, with the standings, the break you have coming up, does that add more urgency or change or shift the timeline at all with Caitlyn and her recovery?
It doesn't really shift anything with Caitlyn. I think it continues to be, the most important thing is that she's 100% when she's ready to come back. The timing, it's never ideal, but her long-term health and wellness is the most important thing.
With her being the competitor she is,
Yep.
kind of younger player, is that something you and the medical staff just kind of reiterate with her? Just, hey, it's okay, take your time, there's a big picture we got to think about here?
Yeah, and I think just the experience throughout the year, trying to come back and come back quickly, has also taught her, that she needs to make sure that she's 100%. And yes, every competitor wants to play. But at the same time, doing it the right way and making sure after we've had a couple of setbacks that we're prioritizing her long-term health and wellness is the most important thing.
You saw this team about a month ago now. They didn't have Marina. They've added Leah Edwards since then. Just kind of what stands out to you watching film of kind of where this team is compared to the one that you saw in Boston?
Well, they're always in the game, and they're highly competitive. They play their butts off. Obviously, when you have a player like Marina and her ability to score and facilitate, she's dangerous. She's one of the most dangerous players in the league. So she gets a ton of attention, and then you add, a great rim runner, rebounder in Leah Edwards, and somebody who can attack the basket, who's a different type of complement to Tina than Liv is or than Haley Peters is. Gives them more size as well. So it's a tough matchup. There's no doubt about it.
Steph, this last week has been a roller coaster for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
You've dealt with the injuries, adding new pieces, the losses. So how have you, just as a staff, tried to keep this group together? But it sounds like also this group is one that is resilient and has been able to lean on each other too.
Yeah, I think that we have great leadership in that locker room. This group is tight. They're connected. They stay together. I think for us reiterating, we've got to, number one, be where our feet are. We can't look too far behind us. We can't look too far in front of us. We've got to make sure that we're focused on the one day at a time. And yes, losing all three of your point guards or not having all three of your point guards is tough. And, the 2-in-1 game was an emotional blow. However, being able to add someone at the caliber of Odyssey especially, and being able to bring in Kyra, now it's just trying to integrate as quickly as possible. That position and playing Sophie out of position, it's been an adjustment. And so for us as a staff, it's shrinking the playbook, making sure we prioritize the things that can be effective for us when Sophie's running offense versus when Odyssey's running offense. And it's about connecting as quickly as we can on the floor.
One more quick one to you on Caitlyn. Do you anticipate she'll be back by the end of the regular season, or?
That's the hope. The hope is that she's back.
This is your first time back in Connecticut. Obviously, homecoming in Boston, or homecoming here. Just what are your thoughts on being back in the building?
Oh, it's just nice to see familiar faces, and it's nice to even walking around, having dinner last night, and seeing folks that are regulars at the games, and it's really every time I've been able to see people in the organization, it feels like coming home. A lot of great people here, a lot of great memories here, so it's nice to reconnect.
You talked a little bit about Odyssey, but just a little bit more on her, with someone of her caliber, her experience. How has she been able to acclimate into the system that you have?
Yeah, I think the first couple of days she was a little nervous. First game, I think you could see a little bit of first game jitters. She was a little hesitant. And, and just having a conversation with her, like, we need you to be you. Like, that's why you're here. Aggressive to the rim. Creating for yourself and others, getting into players on the defensive end of the floor. There's a reason that we wanted her. I thought in the second game and in the practice prior to, she was a lot better, a lot more aggressive. And we need her to continue to hunt those opportunities. Get downhill, get to the rim, create for herself, create for others. Hey, May.
You dealt with, again, a lot of adversity, a lot of different lineups you had to deal with. The injuries, has anything stood out to you about Kelsey in particular in terms of how it makes you taking things on from a mental load, from a play load?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly, putting us at times on her back from a scoring standpoint. She's always been a great scorer. We've had to rely on her to continue to be a playmaker. The difference when you have an area on the floor with her, a Caitlyn on the floor with her, and adding another playmaker, it takes some pressure off of her to be the only one. Now hopefully with Odyssey in the lineup as well, that can take some pressure off of her to be the only one. But her ability to be a primary scorer, I think her facilitating has been the one thing that she's done a lot more of, I would say, in the absence of our 2 point guards. I think it was the first game back, she may have had 8 assists. Her ability to really just create for others as well. There's a fine balance sometimes because we need Kelsey to do what she does best, to score the basketball. But she's going to see a lot different defensive coverages without those other guys on the floor. And so we've got to do a better job of kind of diversifying her looks. Making sure that she can still get some high percentage ones, but she's put us on her back a lot.
With Kelsey, you mentioned last game of the other players before kind of standing around watching a little bit, trying to wait for her to do too much. Is that mental fatigue? I mean, because it seemed like you guys were moving the ball around really well, getting everybody involved. Is it just natural human nature, mental fatigue again, or what do you attribute that to?
Yeah, I think some of it is just not having that player or two, the point guard, on the floor that brings us together and kind of gets that, hey, like once we give it up, this is what we're doing. That coach on the floor. And Sophie is a coach on the floor in her own right, as is AB. But when you have to then have the responsibility of being the primary ball handler, that's a lot mentally as well as physically. You've got point guards on the other end that are hounding you 94 feet. You got to make sure that you're getting everybody in the right position. So it's a different mental load and capacity when you're in those positions. So I think some of it is kind of getting back to what we do best. Some of it's being out of position a little bit, and some of it's not having our point guards on the floor. And so giving Odyssey some ownership of embracing that, making sure that we simplify what she's going to be able to run, and getting a few practices under our belts where we can kind of see these moments of this is what we're looking for, this is how we get there.
In terms of starting lineup, is Odyssey going to slide in today, or are you going to stick with the same group?
Yeah, Odyssey's going to slide in today.
Okay. Replacing Sophie?
Replacing Lex.
Okay.
Last.
Olivia made a lot of growth those past years to Sun. Obviously now her role's a lot different than it was the last 2 years. Where do you see her impacting the floor in different ways now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Liv's continued to work on her game, her ability to stretch the floor, to attack off the bounce, not just playing with her back to the basket, not just, her rim dives, rim attacks on the backside, and playing with a different player in Tina than she was playing with AT. She gets different looks and different reads. And so she's just continued to expand her game, and I think it's benefited her and the organization.
Sanaya Rivers has just been so great and dominant as a rookie, specifically on the defensive end. Was there any game plan coming in today, knowing how she likes to read the lanes and anticipate well? Anything specific that maybe you guys game plan for her and how she plays defense? Yeah,
I think it's a lot for us to have all the adjustments that we're making, and then specifically game plan for offense. I think part of the reason moving Odyssey into the starting lineup is we know between Rivers and Lacan they are going to hound 94 feet. So having a true point guard on the floor to be able to be the primary ball handler, and then you have Sophie and AB in addition to them as 3 ball handlers on the floor instead of 2 in that position, so that we can kick the ball up to Kelsey as opposed to having Kelsey initiate offense is also important. So, changing up our starting lineup is one of those ways that we adjust to that. We've got to make sure that we value the basketball. We've got to make sure that we don't assume when we're bringing it up. She's so good at her timing of getting in there and getting deflections that lead to steals. She's got long arms. She's a great instinctual defender. So making sure that we value the ball, but having multiple players on the floor that can bring it up.
You've mentioned how your team's been resilient throughout the year. Is there another gear you think you can get to in this last 10 games?
I think so. Every time that there's an adjustment that has to be made with particularly a player going down, and now with the 2 going down, it takes a little bit of time. And we had a lot of games in a short period of time. So, now that we have an opportunity to get some practices under our belt with this new group, it's always a little different if that's a wing player or a post player, right? But when it's your primary ball handlers, I think it takes a little bit of time in practice. So I think there is another gear that we can get to. And having an opportunity to get into practice and work on it together is going to be helpful.